Aloha, everyone. My name is Anderson Lay. I'm the Artistic Director for the Hawaii International Film Festival, and thank you for coming to this, viewing this conversation we have two directors here as part of our Vive le Cinema virtual cinema program here at the festival. We're very honored to have the director of Should the Wind Drop, Nora Martirosyan. Did I pronounce that correctly? Close enough.
Yeah, it's okay.
And also the director of Red Soil, Farid Bentoumi. Hello, thank you for joining us for this conversation. So basically this conversation is about your films, obviously, Should the Wind Drop and also Red Soil, but also about kind of your insight on, the push for diversity in French cinema in general. But before we start, I want to just rattle off a quick bios for our directors. So Nora studied art and filmmaking in her native country of Armenia, then traveled across Europe studying in Amsterdam and France. Since 2015, she has taught cinema and video at the School of Fine Arts in Bordeaux. She has directed several award-winning short films, and her debut feature film, Should the Wind Drop, is the first Armenian film in the official selection of the Cannes Film Festival last year, since 1965. The film was shot in Nagorno-Karabakh, the politically disputed region between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The Ministry of Culture of the Republic of Azerbaijan issued letters opposing festival screenings, but festival directors like Thierry Frémaux from Cannes spoke out against these letters and championed the film. And Farid Bentoumi, for the director of Red Soil, is a classically trained actor who has been in a multitude of theatrical plays, short films, and television series. His move to behind the camera as a director started with his notable 2011 film Burners, focusing on the story of amateur filmmaker Amin from Algiers, who treks with his friends through Europe. Bentoumi won the Mir Arab Special Jury Prize at the 2011 Dubai International Film Festival for Burners. He made an indelible mark with the award-winning comedy Good Luck Algeria in 2015, and his second feature, the eco-thriller Red Soil, also world premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2020. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And maybe Nora, I can talk about, maybe you are in the midst of your theatrical release in France for your film, Should the Wind Drop. Can you talk about basically this, the concept for your film? And I believe you visited that region maybe a decade ago, and you fell in love with that region. Can you talk about kind of what brought you to that region? Nagorno-Karabakh, yeah. Right? So,
yeah, that's exact. I first went there in 2009, and being an Armenian and this self-proclaimed republic, it's also inhabited by Armenians. So, well, we had the language in common and kind of shared history. And I was astonished by the paradox that I was witnessing in 2009. The country that I saw in front of my eyes with the roads and the infrastructures and schools and parliament, it had no existence on Google Earth. So what I could see on the world maps didn't correspond to what I saw in front of my eyes. And this was so fictional that I thought that making a documentary film, just talking about this fact, was probably not enough, and I wanted to rise it into something much more poetical. And it took me 10 years to write and to finance the film. As you know, in fact, I'm not coming from filmmaking. I am an artist, and when you don't know anybody in the cinema industry, the way is quite long. But well, now on 29th of May, there was the French release, so the film met its public.
Right. And what was the, I guess the audience reaction? Because this is a unique situation. I mean, including the film itself. I mean, wasn't there an armed conflict last year, right? That was really kind of in the midst of the yeah. Can you maybe explain to that for our viewers?
very curious and tragical, because I put it's 11 years of my life to make the film. I really I was fighting to make it, and then finally when it was made, and when I could bring to the audience this country that the international community ignored. 1 month later, a new conflict burned in this region on September 27th of 2020. And this conflict, it fragmented the territory that I was shooting. So suddenly the reality, the most ugly reality, which is the reality of the war, brought this country on the first pages of the newspapers and radios. And it was very curious because I was promoting my film at that moment. So the war was going on, and during the day I would check if anything happened to people I knew. I spent 10 years doing back and forth with the country. And in the evening, I had to speak about the film, and the fiction and the reality became almost not separable in my head. Mm-hmm. So there were the 6 weeks of the war that Nagorno-Karabakh lost, leaving behind 5,000 deaths, and some people that I know personally. So suddenly this film that had such a long way to go, it became an archive. It became an archive of a time and of a territory that just during the promotion of the film had changed its face and its, how do you say it? Politically, it is not anymore what it was when I was shooting the film. So it's a very curious and very, very sad trajectory of the film.
Right, because the people of that region, Nagorno-Karabakh, it's in a way they're in between. Essentially wedged between two countries, and almost like stateless, and to have that. I love the symbolism of the airport as basically to give legitimacy to these people, and to open it up as a gateway to the world. So was that the idea? Was that inspired by an actual event and whatnot? And how did you you said you worked on it for many years. So what was so can you talk about kind of the symbolism of the airport?
Yeah. So, the first step was this: the paradox of the story, of the existence of this country with no political license, to exist. And I was looking also for a story, for a narrative that would englobe this main thing that I saw in the country, a country that wants to be seen, but nobody wants to look at it. Mm-hmm. And I think it was on the second year, maybe 2010 or 2011, when I first saw the airport, which is standing in the middle of nowhere, a modern airport, with the wings, with the spread wings. And the airport is ready since many years, but it is not, there are no planes received or sent from this airport. So I told to myself that this airport is a symbol of this nation that wants to fly, but which is not allowed to. So I thought that it's important to bring the narrative inside of the airport. And as I wanted the eyes of the Occidental to enter, it's not a local story. It's Europe that makes a road to get to Nagorno-Karabakh. So I chose this wonderful French actor, Grégoire Collin, who is playing the role of international auditor, who comes to Nagorno-Karabakh, who enters the airport, and we as European viewers, we suppose that a human being can change things. So we hope with my character of the auditor that maybe things can get better for the country. So all the writing of the narrative was coming from, let's say, very conceptual lines that I wanted to highlight in the film.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like in a way like between that Occidental European auditor. I mean, that's like a bureaucrat essentially to legitimize something, right?
Completely.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't like on
the most wonderful is that he believes that his decision has any weight. As like yesterday, I was showing the film in France in a cinema hall, and you know, I'm always amazed with the naivety.
naivete. Yeah. Naivete.
How do you say it? Naivete of my Occidental viewers, because they still believe in things like democracy or human rights or or like truth, fake. And you know, when you come, when you neighbor those places, you know, where the democracy is not written with a big D, in fact, you understand the world in a more, let's say, nuanced way.
Right. Not black and white, but a lot of gray areas. A lot of like,
Exactly. I always tell to my students, I need gray. I don't believe in black. I don't believe in white. I need gray.
Yeah. I mean, Farid, I mean, this is perfect and a good segue for your film. It's very much like a whistleblower drama. Can you talk about kind of, I mean, said this is inspired by true events, you know, and how did you, I mean, what was the actual event and how did you decide to dramatize it into this story?
Well, it's a good transition because I don't believe in black and white. I really believe in gray. So I try to make movies where there's no, you cannot say this is right and this is true and this is wrong and this is. I try to make characters, to write characters who have their own reasons to fight, their own reasons to leave, their own reasons to do that or that job, and so that the audience can choose and can understand the problem we solve in the movie by having these different views of the problem. I mean, there's a union guy there. There are workers in the factory. There's this journalist. There's Noor, who's the daughter of the union guy, and who's a whistleblower. And they all have their own point of views. And what's interesting for me is that the audience can just have all those point of views and go out of the theater and start talking about what they just saw in the theater. And for me, when you go see a movie, it's not only seeing a movie as you can see it on TV. I mean, you go out and then you have drinks and then you go to the restaurants and then you talk about it. It's a social way of it's a social art, I think. So it's very interesting for me to not to be black and white, but to give different reasons and different point of views, and the viewer can talk about it and say, okay, what would I do if I were him? What would I do if I were her? But he's right. Yeah, but she's right too. So what do we do with that? And I really believe that the audience is intelligent. I mean, I really believe that the audience have to work, have to think, have to talk, have to be active and not passive.
And then, but regarding the the daughter, the nurse, the main character, Nora is her character's name, right? I believe. Like, I mean, do you think that her perspective is black and white, right and wrong, versus like her conflict with her father, who's like the kind of and there's like the gray area regarding that, and then like, obviously the conflict between the family, working in like talking about kind of, I mean, in a way, this is a very very universal story when it comes to these kind of small towns that are kind of that one company employs everyone,
Yeah, exactly.
and then so and just obviously you see these situations happen all over the world, I mean, with the like Dark Waters, a perfect example, Flint, Michigan, with the the lead in the water and all that stuff. I mean, you see unfettered capitalism and like, the poisoning of like natural resources. I mean, like this is like, something where, I think you kind of made it into, but you've did it in a very kind of like almost thrilling kind of way, and it's very much in the, using the tropes of a thriller. Just was there a lot of when you're inspired by actual events, what did you do to what did you choose to dramatize these events to make it fit within kind of the confines of a narrative thriller in a narrative film versus like the actual kind of inspiration itself?
Well, I think for me there are two times to write the story. I mean, I wrote it during like 2 years, and the first year it's most of the work is reading newspapers, reading books, seeing other movies, talking about whistleblowers or polluting industries and stuff like that, and then writing notes and notes and notes and pages of notes. And so that the movie is not a documentary, but it's very well documented. And then I start writing my story. I start creating characters and thinking about, oh, I have to talk about that because I read that in the newspaper. Oh, I have to talk about that. Oh, these workers that are dying doing that really crappy jobs. I have to talk about them. But I also have to talk about the guy who's in charge and who's running the factory, because he's also a very important character in the whole picture. And as my first movie, I start with the family, because I think that the family for me is a very good way into the movie.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a family. We all have fathers and daughters and or sisters and brothers, and I think that everybody can relate to the characters. So everybody can enter the movie like that, and then you go deep into a wider problem, which is, for instance, pollution, which is, for instance, how to have the courage to become a whistleblower, or the blackmailing. The blackmailing of people who run factories and say, okay, if you talk about that pollution, you're not going to have a job, and the factory is going to close, and the whole village is going to die. I mean, that's blackmailing we see every day in every part of the world, as you say. So basically, I got a lot of documentation, and then I start writing my movie, and I want the audience to get into it. So it became a thriller because it was like that, because I had to have this character going deeper and deeper and deeper inside the silence of the factory, inside the silence of her father, and it's like an inquiry, but it's not as you do in the US. You are very, very good in those type of movie. We don't have that many that many movies like that in France. Inquiries like going deeper into files like that.
Right.
But and then when my script is written, I give it to a factory boss. I give it to a journalist. I give it to a nurse, and they read it and they say, okay, a nurse wouldn't speak like that. As a journalist, I wouldn't do like that. I would speak like that. I would act like that, and my boss would act like that. So that all my characters are very based on true people.
Right.
So that the actors, when they read the script and when they play the characters, they know that everything is right and everything is at its good place.
Yeah, I think it's actually really smart of you to actually have the main characters be father and daughter, and because a lot of it's like the kind of these conversations you have at the dinner table, right? I mean, it's kind of like that's life itself, and it's like to have the debate regarding that, and how do you to extrapolate that into the main overall story, I think is really, really smart and very, very relatable as well. I mean, maybe for both of you, for both the directors, like maybe, like I mean, but Nora, you talked about the actor who played the auditor, like but like Farid, I mean, talk about like Zita Hanro is the main actress.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe she, I've seen her in other work, and like, how did you come up with how did you cast these wonderful actors to play in your films? Like, I mean, what was it? And then with Zita and the father, like, was it always intended to be of them? Like, I guess just going into more of the broader kind of themes of this discussion of push for diversity. Like, it's like, were you cognizant of was it colorblind casting, for example, or was their ethnicity kind of like part of this story, or was it just because of more of they were the best actors that you chose in the casting process?
Well, Sami Bouajila was the main character of my first feature film,
right?
And Zita, I just love her. I think she's very physical, and she's also, when she starts smiling, she's incredibly sunny. I mean, like Sami. And no, I choose good actors first, and I didn't think about ethnicity or diversity or whatever. I mean, my mother's French, my father's from Algeria, North Africa, and I don't wake up every morning thinking about, well, am I French today or I'm Algerian? I mean, I don't even speak Arabic. I live in France. I feel French, but I also have these strong roots from Algeria. And every day when I call my father, I remember that I'm from Algeria, you know. But I'm first a director. I'm a father. I'm a lover. I don't know. I have different identities. My roots are not my main identity. I don't feel like going out every day saying, oh, I'm Algerian, look at me, I'm Arabic, you know. And it's the same in my movies. My main character, Zita, she's a nurse. I mean, she's called Noor. She's from Arabic descent. But I don't feel like saying, oh, look, she's from Arabic descent, so that makes that in her life. I mean, she doesn't think about it every day. And she's not a nurse because she's from Arabic descent. I mean, we are so diverse. I mean, there are so many things happening in our lives that we cannot say that our roots are our main fuel in life, you know.
Right.
And I don't feel like underlining everything. I don't feel like it. But it just happens that unionists in France and workers in the factories are mostly immigrants. That's a fact. And nurses are mostly immigrants. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So, but for instance, the journalist who's played by Céline Salette, she's pregnant because the actress was pregnant. She called me 2 months before the shooting, and she said, "Well, in 2 months I'll be 6 months pregnant. So if you want to cast another character, you can. Another actress, you can." I said, "No, why that?" So I rewrote the character saying that the journalist was pregnant, and that was very interesting. But I didn't feel like saying every time in the movie, oh, she's pregnant, so she acts like that. She's pregnant, so she acts like that. I mean, everywhere in the world, there are women that are 7th month or 8th month pregnant, and they work and they continue to live. I mean, so it's just part of our lives. And that's why I love in my movies to create characters that work, have a family, have origins, different origins, diversity, and our life is so diverse. That's very interesting.
I mean, it's very. I mean, I like the way she was introduced in the. I think like her first introduction to the film was at that you know, that politicians meeting, that kind of community meeting. I was like, you know, she stood up and I was like, oh, is she pregnant? Like, it's like, you know, in a way, it's like interesting. It's like never said, you know, and almost in a way, kind of informs the character that she's even more driven because she's carrying, you know,
exactly.
So I thought it was really fascinating. For Nora, like, you know, choosing your actors, like, you know, I think, were you, was there a lot, were they all professional actors, or was it the boy was incredible? I mean, was he a non-actor? I mean, can you talk about how do you cast for your film?
From Armenian side, there are 4 professional actors. They are mostly theater actors because there is no much cinema in Armenia.
Right.
And and the others are not professionals. They are people that I met and knew and liked during my trips to Nagorno-Karabakh, and I thought that it's important that they should be inside of the film. But it's funny when you work with professional, not professional actors. Well, they told me, oh, your non-professionals should play as well as professionals. And in fact, I think we were trying to do something in the other direction. For example, like the taxi driver, when after the first day of shooting, he was telling me, so what do you think? And I said, yeah, that's very good, but the same thing, 50% less. And yeah, that's very good, more 30% less. That's very good, 20% less. Very good, 10%. And then he turned to me and he said, you don't want me to play? I said, well, I think I don't want you to play.
Right.
And so I think it was tuned in the kind of different direction, this
Sure.
acting.
Yeah.
And the fact that my Armenian actors, they didn't speak French or English, they learned the very complex and heavy texts by heart.
Wow.
It's really amazing, and nobody would guess, the French speakers, I mean.
Yeah.
And in fact, they had to concentrate on the text, and they had to concentrate on remembering. So they didn't have much possibility to act and to show. And I was really looking for a very introvert play, as Farid said, something physical, but not demonstrative.
Right.
And it was the same with Grégoire Collin. So the moment when I chose him and he said, so how is your Alain Delage? What is he, your auditor? And I said, speaking about the diversity, I said, it's just a normal man. It's a normal man. It's nothing, you know, exceptional. It's just a normal man.
Right.
And then during the film, maybe he will be changed, maybe not. And we have to discover what this normal man living through what he goes through, how would he act? So we were discovering the character of Alain Delage every day of the shooting. And then when we came closer to the end of the shooting with Grégoire, we said, in fact, the script doesn't correspond to Alain Delage that we drew together. So we had to change several scenes in the script, and especially in the end, because it gave us more profound understanding of who is he. And then the script was not good enough for this new character. So yeah, I had this luck of working with people who were flexible and who didn't have, you know, these blocks of being sure of the thing. So we were kind of trying and knitting this film from very fragile threads.
Right. So, I mean, interesting. Like, so the Armenian actors couldn't speak French, so they would basically memorize it phonetically, right? So was this, I mean, like you said, was it an advantage for you too, because they were basically, I mean, how's that? Because yeah, when I think of that, I think of, you don't know a language and you're just thinking phonetically, you think they'd be almost robotic or no emotion. So, but then they were so natural. Like, how did you, I mean, almost understated, like they were.
I think we underestimate the capacity of actor, because I was really amazed of their capacity of understanding, putting sense in the worlds that they don't understand.
Right.
And in fact, when you, what was really funny, for example, what Grégoire Collin was playing with an Armenian actor, and he would change something very small in his text without, instead of saying yes, he would say maybe. The other one would block because he wouldn't know the answer, because he wouldn't understand the language. And in fact, all the beginning of the film, it's about these two cultures,
right,
which are looking at each other, not completely understanding. There are all this, you know, this white holes, and then the silences, and they look, and this is what you see in the film. This is what you see between the director and Alain Delage. But in fact, it's also an Armenian man who is really trying to remember his text, and Grégoire Collin, who hopes that the other one wouldn't forget. So it was, what the cinema shows is, you know, this, it's maybe not necessarily, it shouldn't necessarily be very psychological. Maybe there are also other ways that we can go through to play the characters and to make them like real. Right.
I mean, it's interesting because the interactions with the auditor is almost like, I mean, they, you know, they're playing like, I mean, so for me it's authentic because you see him as almost an unnecessary evil. Like, you know, it's kind of like the colonizer comes in, like he has to legitimize everything, but at the same time they're like kind of like, not leery is not the word, not, you know, like it's like, you know, something where because you know, their performance is so understated, and that was really um, very, interesting to see that how they would treat someone like that. I think it's like, very done in a very authentic way. And I thought it was, kind of great that, whatever tools are needed to, if it's phonetically to, inform that performance, make it very understated, I think was really, 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 really smart, so,
Mhm.
but like, so, I mean, for Farid, I mean, we're all the, like going back to kind of like, these factory workers or like chemical plant workers, they usually working class. They tend to be, again, like you said, um, not white or immigrants from immigrant families and whatnot. Like it's like you talk about, you know, your, just because I mean, in a way, because your first film was also about family too, right? So, what is the theme of family? How do you use that as a tool to kind of tell your stories in your films?
Well, I think maybe I should see a psych should make a therapy because I talk about my family all the time, my father, my mother, and
Yeah.
You should, you
no,
should.
I should. Well, I do a therapy by doing movies and writing movies, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my father was a factory worker, and my
Mhm.
my mother and father were both unionists. And
Mhm.
at home, when I was a child, I always had union meetings at home,
Right.
and then we did strikes and we did demonstration like every weekend. So I was raised by parents who were really into how we can change society.
Right.
So when I turned 40, I was like, what am I doing with that? What am I doing with that? I'm a director. I'm much more wealthy than my parents were at my time, at my
Yeah.
age. So what am I doing with that? How am I gonna change society? What is my so that's why I think I wrote Red Soil. I mean, there are less and less unionists in France. There are less and less people interested by politics, and I think that the new way to get involved into societies might be being a whistleblower, or might be getting into ecologist associations who are fighting for to avoid the climate change. I mean, we have to act now. We every day we have new like as you had in the US and in Canada last week. I mean, it was terrible. It was
Mm.
terrible.
Oh yeah.
And every day we have bad news about climate. So we have to change things right now. And I think that's a new. There are less and less factories and less workers. So the fight is like moving towards other areas. I mean,
Hmm.
people working for Amazon or Uber or services like that. I mean, they have to fight for their rights, and they are the new workers in a way. The new factory workers.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
think that I tell stories about my family and what I really know about how to get involved into society, and then I try to make it accurate for today's fights.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like,
I don't know if
yeah.
doing cinema. I don't know if doing cinema, being a director, is enough to change society. I try my best, but I don't know if it's enough. I'm still thinking about that.
Is it because of the way cinema is viewed nowadays? I mean, like, it's not as like, I mean, it's much more crowded space when it comes to, all the other stuff that's happening, or even the way we consume or watch films as, cinema now. Do you think there's like, it's because of the way people or the next generation consume or watch, I mean, I don't want to use content, like it's like, like it's
Yeah,
like, yeah. So,
but I wouldn't say the next generation as a whole. I
yeah,
don't think so. I don't think so. I think they are so diverse. I mean, there are people that are really into streaming comedies and
right,
streaming like seeing as series and series. And I don't think that we can say there's a new generation.
right.
Young people are so diverse, and there are some of them are very very into getting involved into changing society. So I hope that my movie will be seen by those people,
Mhm.
and that they will say, okay, we have to be whistleblowers, and we have to change things. I have a daughter that's 11, and I have a small son that's 2 years old, and I really believe that they can change the world. As a matter of fact, my daughter's name is Noor, as my main character, and I really hope that she'll be more intelligent than me, and more brighter than me, and more involved into society than I am. You know, I
Right.
really believe into the next generation.
Right. Nora, I mean, you as like, from Algeria, like in the, your film is very much, can you talk about kind of the, like you said, you visited that region, you fell in love with it, and you wanted to create this film about it. Uh, um, can you talk about your kind of like your Algerian identity, how that informed this film and your work in general?
Well, it's Armenian identity and not Algerian. It's not
Oh,
exactly the same
yeah, I'm sorry,
region.
excuse me,
Yeah, no,
sorry.
it's okay.
I'm a stupid American, sorry.
Yeah, maybe first I
My
would
mistake.
like to react on what Farid said
Yes.
about this, social involvement in the cinema. I'm not coming from the same history, and I don't have the same roots. And
Right.
I came to France when I was already almost 30, so
Wow.
I was already like somebody.
Yeah.
And for me, making films, it's not about changing or not changing anything. It's not if a social message would be heard or not. But for me, it's, I think in the world that in which we live, which is a world of profit, of capitalism, of gain, to make something that doesn't have the necessity to exist, it is a very important act of resistance. So I think any piece of art, which is, would it be a painting or a sculpture or a film, if it is thought as something that the world doesn't need economically,
Yeah.
I think it is an act of resistance. So in this sense, I think I do resist the stupidity and the avidity of the world in a more, let's say, philosophical way.
Right.
And what was very, I wanted to make a poetical film because I wanted to make a film about a hope of a nation to be seen and recognized when the international community is just turning the head away. And it wasn't a political film. I didn't want to make a political film. And in fact, it became a political film, and there are many, as soon as it is shown somewhere, Azerbaijan is sending protestation notes,
Right.
and so I think, though I didn't want to make a political film, and gesture of making a film in this place, it is a political gesture. So I think sometimes, our expectations and our ideas are drawn away by what we produced.
Right.
And I think the biggest strength, and at the same time, let's say, fear, is that the object that you made is stronger than you are and speaks louder than you are able to do.
Right. I mean, how did because like, I definitely all art is political. Like maybe this is a good segue into, because you both didn't start as directors. I mean, Nora, your background is as a painter, as an artist, right? How did was that transition? Why did you transition to filmmaking? And then Farid, you can answer, because you started in the theater, you as an actor, and how did you transition over to behind the camera? So maybe Nora, you can start off.
Yeah. So when I discovered that the moving image with the sound exists, like in an art school in Amsterdam, because I did my second art school in Amsterdam, I thought that it's amazing, because in fact you can put everything inside of it. You can put smells, you can put sounds, you can put the cries of the babies, you can put so much inside of a film. And I thought it's like, when I like cooking, and it's like, cooking with plenty of ingredients, and not only like pasta pesto.
Yeah.
And And you know, with this cooking, I didn't really mean to make like big restaurant dishes, and I wanted to make, let's say, family cooking. So there were small films of 18 minutes, 40 minutes, and I never asked myself the question of a format. I remember once I was getting a prize, and they told me like the film was for a short film, and they said, "So when are you going to make your first feature?" And I said, "Well, everything I have to say, it can be included in 18 minutes. I don't need to speak more." But when I met Karabakh, and when I met this story, when I met this country, it's I don't know, it's really stupid to say it. It's like a mission. I said, well, somebody has to speak about it, so you know, I have to do it, and it should be a long feature film because it's important this place to be seen. And in the end, that's what happened. So it was not a decision. It was not, yeah, I decided that I'm a filmmaker, but like this film came to me, let's say.
Yeah. Farid, how about you? I mean, transitioning over to behind the camera.
Well, talking about diversity, I was when I was an actor, I was always cast to play the same type of characters, and I was tired about it, and I wanted to write other stories. I mean, it happened one day. Actually, there was a change in my point of view when I did a casting, and they told me, well, you're a very good actor, but you're not Arabic enough. You're not Arab enough.
Okay.
You're not,
yeah.
And I went back home, and I was like, what is to be? How could I be more Arabic? Who am I? I mean, am I French? Am I from? Who am I? So I had to write my story because well, part of my story and stories I knew, and write other visions of immigrants, and especially from North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it happened at first, and then it became very interesting for me to write for actors and to direct actors on stage. And I was on set, and I feel like when you write words and then it became characters, it's like magical. I really believe in the magic of cinema. I mean, how you what you can create with sounds, for instance, what you can create with just as Nora said, there are so many things. You're like directing an orchestra. I mean, with and everybody in the orchestra is very, very good in his own field. Mm-hmm. And you're just the director of people that are great, and like so many artists. I mean, you have painters on set. I mean, you have people that are specialists in sound. You have musicians. You have actors. You have writers. You have so many people, and they are all very good in their own field, and that's great. I mean, that's very magic for me.
Yeah, I mean,
I have to leave you on that. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So I
just wanted to complete something that Farid said. In fact, you know, it's complicated to make films, even in France, where the system of financing of the film is one of the best. I think it's the most, you know. Absolutely. Even in France, it's very complicated to finance films. But I think when you leave this moment of the extreme power that you have to decide the direction of the wind, to decide at what moment the sun will rise. It's this extreme, it's like you are a superhero, you have a superpower. And I think it's like a drug, you know, you once you tasted it, in fact, you want again, you know, to be able to decide if people leave or die, or they get married, or they get divorced. So I think this is really this poison of being a filmmaker.
I mean, one of the rare jobs in the Western world, you can be a dictator, right? So,
no, sorry, I'm gonna have to leave you because I'm in a shooting right now, and I gotta be on set in like 1 hour. So
run.
But it was great to meet you.
Good to meet you, Farid.
It was great meeting you.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe before you leave, maybe you could talk about your next project. So you're working on.
I'm shooting a series for Netflix, and it's a comedy, and it's written by Fanny Herrero, who wrote "Call My Agent."
Oh yeah. Huge hit.
So
Yeah.
it's her new series, and it's great because it's a comedy, but it's also really based on the characters, and you really go into their different families, and actually talks about stand-up and people, young people trying to be funny. So and they all have very strong family links, and that's what interested me, and that's why Fanny Herrero called me to direct it, because it's how you link your story and how you put your story on stage by writing a stand-up comedy. So that's very interesting.
It's definitely within your wheelhouse, because it's again about a family too, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Well, Farid, thank you so much for joining us, and
thank you very much.
We're honored to have your film at our festival.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Nora. Bye.
Bye.
And Nora, I think you have the last question for this session. Like, it's like, what are you working on next? I mean, it's funny that you said that you were content on like making these films of any length. That short films were fine, and that you were kind of like, maybe it was kind of fate or destiny that you had to make your mission to make this feature film. Do you have the? I mean, you said like it's like, being getting addicted to this drug to kind of like make these films. Like, what is your next project?
I started writing something before the war began, and during this war, in fact, everything seemed so small and not important. So I think I need some time to understand better what is this new world, because this war really changed my intimate geography. And I think I will really try to avoid to make something that much based on documentary physical land, let's say, because in fact the physical land can change, though when it's an imaginary land, the danger that it would move in such a short time is smaller. So I think it will be something more, let's say, fantastic.
Oh wow, okay. And then at the meantime, you're on your I guess earlier you said that your film is being theatrical release right now. It's in its theatrical release in France. What was the kind of reaction from the audiences? I mean, you're on this tour, right? Before you, what
it's quite amazing. I remember when the day before the shooting, it's my first film, and I don't know much about film industry, so I was really like a pupil who was ready to learn anything that would be taught. And I was with the cameraman in the car, and I was asking him, do you think I should make this way or this way? And then he said, is it important for you the number of the entries, the number of the, how much public would come? And I said, no, it's not important. And then he said, well, then you do whatever you want. And in fact, I made the film the way I wanted. I didn't really, I wasn't pushed to do something that I didn't want, not by the production, not by the team. In fact, I made the film I wanted for myself. And this is amazing to see that it talks to the public. Farid, in the beginning of our discussion, he said the public is intelligent. One should believe that public is intelligent. One shouldn't think that something very complex, it's too much, because people watch TV or I don't know what. And I'm really amazed by the reaction of the public. People are touched, and they have plenty of questions, not only geopolitical, but also cinematographical and about the characters. So I think in the situation which is ours, the lockdown, and then, it's complicated, coming back to normal life, and it is still very, very complicated. But I think we are very, very lucky with how the film is accepted and liked by the public.
That's great. And then you are also an educator, right? You also
I teach in an art school.
Right. So what do you impart? What is your wisdom that you want to impart to your students? I mean, in art in general, it doesn't have to be film or anything like that. What do you?
I tell to, it's always this question, the talent of an artist, and all these things which are, I think, not very important. And I say always to my students, desire and determination, desire and determination. So I think those are, for me, the most important things. You desire, and if you are determined, it will take the time it will take. You get where you want it.
Well, those are tenets that are, very much, you will this film to happen. And I was like, again, being, very ignorant when it comes to geopolitics. Like, it's like didn't know much about this region, and the fact that you put a lens, you shine a spotlight on it, and you made it such a universal story, that me from Hawaii can relate to it as well. So it's like, so again, thank you so much for making this film, Nora, and we look forward to your next project.
Thank you very much for inviting the film, and have a great festival.
Thank you very much.
And talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.